This video is to teach you how to get better at virtual hearings. I was inspired to make it because only a few days ago, and 11 months into this global pandemic, the federal court, out of frustration, put out a webinar teaching lawyers how to appear properly before them. You'd think after all this time we would have figured it out as lawyers, but we haven't. So give me less than 10 minutes and I'll teach you the things you need to know to have the best virtual hearing possible. My name is Dan Rossman. I'm a civil litigator working in the Toronto area. Over this 11-month pandemic, I've been part of trials, motions, discoveries, and other virtual events. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. The purpose of this video is to help you develop your virtual advocacy skills by going over some of the best practices and some of the principles that we have to think about when we're conducting a virtual hearing or virtual event. I'm going to break this video up into 3 parts. First, I'm going to talk about the principles that we need to think about when designing and setting up our virtual hearing setup. Second, I'm going to talk about good quality audio. And third, I'm going to talk about good quality video. I'm not going to talk about how to use Zoom. I'm not going to talk about how to use Microsoft Teams. We can save that for another video if you guys want to see it. So let's talk about the principles that we need to apply for virtual advocacy. Now, they come from the principles of good written advocacy and good oral advocacy. But the main focus is to make sure that our message is what's being focused on, and we're not giving distractions, and we're not taking away from our message with background noise, things in our camera, fans spinning in our view, things like that. Not only do they take away from the message you're trying to convey, but the judge will actually get annoyed and frustrated with you if your presentation contains those elements. So we can think of 3 clear headings when it comes to good virtual advocacy. 1, clear audio. Try to sound like you're in the room with the judge. Use a good microphone, make sure you're speaking into it properly, minimize background noise, and try to sound as good and as clear as possible. 2, clear video. Control your frame. Keep it still. Don't have any fast movements happening in the background, such as spinning ceiling fans, TV, other things like that. And make sure you're sitting in the frame properly. It's very important. You don't want to see yourself in the back of a boardroom where you can't even be seen. You still need to make sure that you're able to use body language, facial language, things like that in your virtual hearing. And 3, and the most important thing, is minimize all distractions. Make sure you control your virtual environment so that nothing gets onto the camera and into your presentation that you don't want to be there. Believe it or not, I've done settlement conferences and other virtual events where counsel has joined like this, holding their cell phone, fingers get in front of the lens, and using the audio from the phone. I think we can see that this is distracting. It's, in fact, might induce a little bit of a stomach issue when you're watching someone do this. Another thing we see a lot is people joining virtual hearings and other virtual events using their laptop. Their laptop is sitting on the desk, facing up at them. They have a light source behind them, which makes it very hard to see. Also, they use the built-in microphone on their laptop, which is terrible and makes it hard for them to get their message across at the hearing. Now let's talk about audio. Audio is the most important equipment element in a virtual hearing. It's more important than your camera because if you can't see someone or seeing them as choppy, you can still get by if you can hear them clearly. If you can't hear them or you're hearing lots of background noise or things like that, it's much more difficult to understand what they're trying to do, what they're trying to say. So we're going to go over my setup, what I found useful, and discuss some things that don't work in this section on audio. I use a desktop USB microphone. This one is called a Yeti by a company called Blue. And as a backup, in case of emergencies, I'll use a set of headphones with a mic built into it. Now, I don't like to wear headset microphones to court. One, I don't think they look nice. I think uh, covering your head like this with these things is not appropriate for court. But also, the sound quality is not great. This is not a noise canceling headset, which means it actually sounds better, because noise canceling headsets have a very thin and tinny sound that reminds you of a helicopter headset, and I think they should be avoided. So what you just heard was the audio out of that headset, and it didn't sound as good as the audio out of this USB mic, but it is okay if you need to use it. I also see people using wired Apple style earbuds. These are okay if they work. The problem is they break very easily, and you won't actually know that they're broken, and they get a very staticky sound on the other side, and only your listener is going to hear that. So if you're going to use these, they actually sound okay, but just be careful that they're not broken. My suggestion is to get a USB mic like this. It sounds the best. You can keep it out of the frame, and you're never going to have an issue with being heard. You may be wondering why there's a lamp been pointing at this wall throughout this entire video. Well, I'm going to explain that to you now. I'm also going to show you a tour of my at-home, my office setup for virtual hearings and other virtual events that I have to take part in. It's very similar to my office setup, except it's just not as robust. As you can see in the office setup, I have 3 monitors, I have dedicated lighting, and another USB microphone. So the first thing we have to think about is lighting our faces. If you remember back in the what not to do little segment of the video, everything were dark, it was hard to see. What I'm doing here is I'm shining a light up against the wall, which is reflecting back on my face and lights me nicely for the virtual hearing that I'm attending. It keeps me bright, but it's not bright in my eyes. I can see, and it doesn't overexpose me. My camera, I've positioned it so that I'm looking dead straight into it. It's at eye level, which is very important. You don't want to be looking down, you don't want to be looking up. You want to be eye level. If you're going to use a laptop, which is fine, just make sure you raise that laptop by putting it on some sort of stand, or even on an Amazon box or a couple of shoe boxes piled on top of each other. I know of other lawyers and other people that do this all the time. Some will put a tripod right in the middle of the screen with the camera in the screen, so it helps them look directly at the person that they're speaking with. There's also other tricks you can do. You can minimize zoom and just stick it right underneath the camera so that you are always staring at that, which definitely helps with eye contact and help with putting your best foot forward at a virtual hearing. Okay, so this is what a judge is going to see when I'm appearing at a virtual hearing. Notice that I've put myself in frame from just above my chest to with a little bit of room above my head. I have a background behind me that I'm trying to make not very distracting. It's got some things in it, so there's some texture, there's something to see, but there's nothing worth looking at that's going to take away from what I'm saying or distract anyone from what I'm doing here. I've got the light bouncing off the wall in front of me onto my face, so my face is well lit, but there's no light shining in my eyes. I'm not squinting, I'm not uncomfortable. And also notice that I'm not using a virtual background, and that's on purpose. Virtual backgrounds are nice, but you need a computer with a certain amount of horsepower to really pump those. If you don't have that kind of power, you're going to get pixelation and other little digital distortions that can be distracting and will take away from your message. So my goal here is to put forward the best picture that I can that's keeping me on message and not taking away from what I'm saying. Now remember, you're going to be going before and after other lawyers. You want to make sure that your presentation is just as good, if not better, than theirs. If there's a drastic difference, it's going to get noticed. So thank you for watching my video today. There's a lot of stuff we didn't go over, such as making sure your internet isn't blocked up, having backups in case you have a dropout, things like that. I'm happy to do more of these videos where we discuss those issues. If you want to see anything specific, leave comments and I'll try to get back to you. If I made any mistakes, tell me in the comments so I can fix them. And if you have a better way of doing it, tell me in the comments as well. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope your next virtual hearing is a success.